Hello, Ohana. Soul Dr. Nick here. And today I want to help you get maybe even up to a third of your life back of the waking, conscious, having fun life. And it sounds dramatic, and part of it is just waking up at first impulse. And it may sound like it's a lot of work to do, and I want to share where I was, where I am, and how it happened, and plant the seeds for the possibility. And for some of you may get it right away, and something may shift right away. And for others, I'd invite you to let it percolate in the background. I'll probably release a few more of these videos over the next few months just to keep planting the seed, because it's a seed that I didn't even know was possible. And let me give you a little bit of background then. And right now it's about 6 a.m., just to let you know. I lived 42 years of my life sleeping in, and I could sleep until like 3 p.m. Like I could sleep for over 16 hours. People would be like, why? And I was just loving it. I didn't realize for a big part of it as well, there was some depression hiding from the world, just being like, maybe it's better that I don't exist. Maybe it's better to stay out of the way. And then I had this realization, this ceremony that I didn't realize changed everything until I started just waking up and getting up. And it was sometime usually between 4 and 6 a.m. every morning. And it was without an alarm. It was just getting up. And it was one day at a time, one day at a time. And for a lot of that time, we were actually staying in our truck camper as well. So it was just surprising. And then I'd have to leave the camper to not wake everyone else up or read a book or something else like that. And then I started realizing I really enjoyed that time. So for those of you who have got a young child as well, there's very little time to yourself. And so I started getting time to myself. I was like, oh, I actually have time when I started looking forward to this. Like, this is my most magical time. And I started realizing after a few months, it was enough evidence that I'm going to wake up without an alarm. I would set an alarm usually, but I'd wake up before it. And then I started actually trusting, going, oh, unless there's something really critical. And even then I could set an alarm just before that, but I'll probably be up anyway. And it didn't matter when I went to bed. It didn't matter if I went to bed early or late, because I usually went to bed with my family, and they usually go to bed around midnight, and I'd still wake up between 4 and 6 a.m. And then I would be conscious of myself during the day. I might need a little bit more rest occasionally. I might need something. But I was waking up with this first impulse and didn't realize it till at some point in time I started getting a little quote unquote lazy. I was like, oh, I don't want to get up. Like I get up and then realized I missed it on that opportunity, or I didn't sleep well after I didn't want to get up. And that even leads to today. So today, for example, I have a first call at 9 a.m. So my alarm's just before then. I was woken up by my son and my cat just before 3 a.m. and didn't want to move right away, so I wanted to make sure he fell back asleep. And then I got up and I was like, oh, I feel tired. I'll lie back down and listen to some podcasts at the same time. And so I fell asleep listening to podcasts from about 3 to 6 a.m. Now what was cool about today, and I felt more groggy, was the podcasts were really weaving into my dreams. It was so cool to have that experience. And I had dreams of Matthias DeStefano with the samurai, with Aubrey Marcus, with all this stuff. It was awesome. And then I had just gotten to the part I'd listened to Elon Musk and Trump just came up. And then this other one, Peter Crone, came up, and it woke me up. I was like, oh yeah, it's time to get going. And I listened to that impulse. I was like, all right, it's time to get going. And I'm grateful I did. And I came out, I was like, I've got to share this. I've got to remind people. And part of it is, if you're like, oh, what's the secret? What's the formula? There wasn't a formula for me. It happened spontaneously, and that's how it needed to happen for me. If you told me I need to plan this thing I need to do, I'd be like, no, I don't want to do it, first of all. I like sleeping. At that point in time, I would be like, no, this is just being more pain. And now part of it's because I see life as excitement. Like today's going to be a wunderbar day. Even in the midst of conflict, I'm having a really challenging time. I'm still appreciating the ability to be conscious. And I'm not trying to run away from my dreams either. So I'm going to remind myself, I remind myself this morning, I was like, I don't plan on doing it always this way forever. Because one of the downsides is that when I wake up, it can be an abrupt transition from the dreams. And so I have a little less retention. And one of the upsides is I try to remember, like every morning, like, what did I dream? Doesn't matter how silly it was. Record it in some way, written, audio, something else. I try to do that right away, and I had the opportunity to because no one else is awake. And then So those are just a couple of the possible downsides. And then the upsides is like, for example, we've got this beautiful amenity room, which has a giant fireplace. And because I'm up so early, it's like my private little studio office, because I'm not worried, at least until 8 a.m., that anyone's going to show up. And so there's so much more aliveness. And I feel sometimes in the morning especially, it's not as cloudy with everyone else's stuff. So how to get a third of your life? Normally every day I usually get, because sometimes I wake up at 2 a.m. My family doesn't wake up until 10. I get an extra like 8 hours of life a day. That's more than a third. That's a third of a day. But usually I get at least 4 to 6 hours. And that's when I'm doing all this work. I'm doing this mirror work that I'm doing. I'm preparing, I'm setting up messages. And the thing I remind myself is when I wake up and I get out of bed, if I'm really tired, the worst I'll do is I'll just lie back down again, whether I go back to bed or lie on the couch. And that's the piece to remind yourself of, is to have compassion for yourself, especially initially. If it's like, oh, but then acknowledge, I at least got up out of bed. Like I started to hear my body's impulses. And often when you first wake up, and this is what happened to me, and I've been noticing recently, when I first wake up, it's because there's a surge of heat in my body. I actually feel so hot. And then when I start getting cool again, especially in the morning, like if I get up at 2, I do this work and I start getting cool again around 6, and like, my body's trying to say I want a little more rest. So I'll go and I'll meditate and I'll rest. Don't try to push through the whole day just because. And as I listen to the rhythms of my body more, there are days where I'm like taking lots of mini naps and all this stuff. There's days that I'm a little bit off. I don't try to give myself the lie going, oh, I didn't get enough sleep. Like it's such a pervasive thing now. Like it's almost a badge of honor. I didn't sleep enough. I'm fatigued. I'm all this stuff. Versus just in this moment, how am I feeling? In this moment, it can change. It can get better. It can get worse. So I know this has gone on a little longer. A lot of love. I hope this creates more energy, vitality, life for you. Feel free to drop some comments in, and we'll see you soon. Ciao for now.